In these perilous times, see from current events how biblical prophecy is coming to pass in front of our eyes. You're watching In the Last Days, the program that looks at Israel and the end times with teaching from a Hebraic perspective. With Martin and Natalie Blackham, thank you to our friends and partners who make this program possible. Now, here's Martin and Natalie.
Hello, dear friend. Shalom from the heart of Israel. This is wonderful to be able to be with you today. This is the program In the Last Days. My name is Natalie Blackham. Martin, my husband, is behind the scene today. And we have the privilege to be able to introduce people from the land of Israel. Israel is a young country, only 65 years old. And we have the privilege today to introduce you to Irene Levi. And Irene has arrived in the Middle East in 1948. So it's a great privilege to have her. Aline, shalom. Thank you for coming here. It's a privilege to have you. Aline was born in Ohio in the States, and she had a call to go to a mission field, and she was praying for India, but suddenly her heart was grasped by the heart for, and her heart was grasped for the love of Jerusalem and the love of Israel. And she's done a bit of a detour and stay in the Middle East. So Irene, just again, thank you for coming, taking the time to come here in Harada, and tell us what was Israel, how was Israel in 1948?
Yes, even though I had the privilege from the Lord God of Israel to be born in the middle of USA, in Ohio, I was in New York about the time when 1948 saw the birth of a nation in one day, as it were, according to the scriptures. Mm-hmm. And all Jewish people and everybody in this New York, where I was beginning to see more and more of a little New York in little Israel in New York, suddenly I find that the working of things, I got in a Marine Corps ship along with Jewish people coming back to help fight in the war that was progressing, because the Middle East, not all were happy for the Jewish people having a nation, but they were helping. And so I got in that ship all myself. But what a time I had on that ship with these soldiers, beginning to learn a little Hebrew, beginning to know more about Israel, and all the things that transpired there. But then, instead of getting a visa, which was not able right at that time, because Israel was just becoming a nation, I had a visa for Lebanon, as I was told to come from Lebanon down, but we always say up, to Jerusalem. So that's exactly where I landed, in Lebanon.
In 1948, in June?
In 1948. June the 11th is when I got the ship. So I have to cut the part of Israel short, except in Lebanon and other places where I went, I'll tell you about in a minute. I met somebody from England, and cutting it short, we came up to Jerusalem and were married in December 1948.
Stanley.
Stanley Deuce. Mm-hmm. He had known the Middle East for 10 years before I came out here. And one reason that brought us together, and we married. So, inasmuch as we were in Jerusalem at that time while the war was going on, we never knew how it was going to end. Mm-hmm. And really, while we stayed at the St. George Cathedral there, where we married, suddenly the war was ended, and what happened? Jerusalem became divided. So we were on the Jordan side. So, cutting another long story short from my Middle East wheels, we went not only to Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Jordan, all these places, many times with refugees among the Arabs and among the Jewish people in these different parts, especially in Baghdad, Iraq. Mm. Later, I can tell you how we met them back in Israel. But let me come again. After about a year and a half in these Arab sections and the Arab part of Jerusalem. Cutting a long story short, we got over into the west side of Jerusalem. And there, by the way, people where I had taught in Virginia gave us money to buy a station wagon. And what we had used it among the Arab refugees and so on. Now, we were in the west side, and also there were refugees, you might call, from Arab countries, the Jewish people. But we would say immigrants to Israel. So then, with this station wagon, and we stayed in a place called St. Andrew's Scotch Hospice, where we kept this station wagon.
Where my daughter got married in January.
Is that right?
Yes, it's amazing how, history is following each other.
Oh,
and
the stories I could
amazing.
tell about that.
Yes, I saw in your book.
Oh, yes.
It's wonderful.
Well, so from there, we were driving all over different parts of Israel. And in the fact that I had a place on the back of the front seat, I put where I could put pockets. And so a man called George T.B. Davis had, they called the Million Testaments campaign. He had New Testaments in every language you can imagine. And so we put them in these pockets. As we carried Jewish people and others all through the land and learning little by little some Hebrew, although I went to an Ulpan to learn more.
The school, special school to learn.
School to learn. And then whoever wanted could take from these free New Testaments. But later, whole Bibles were sent from, I forgot what country. And since we had this station wagon, and we were free to do whatever we wanted, we didn't have somebody abroad telling us from some mission board. We weren't under any.
You were free.
Just were free to, as the Lord provided. And so therefore we took Bibles all over to schools and libraries.
And they wanted them.
And they did, yes.
Yes.
They were very happy.
Yes. This is very interesting because, a lot of people, you had this amazing privilege to be in the land at that time, but we have to understand the kibbutz were secular.
Yes.
It wasn't religious Jews. At that time, Israel, and you speak well about it in your book, but they wanted the word of God. They arrived in the land and they wanted the word. This is very interesting.
Exactly, because it was being fulfilled.
Exactly.
And so at that time, we began to even meet many from Iraq, where we had been when we were on the Arab side.
Jewish people coming back.
Jewish people coming from back, even though now, thank God, they were free. At this time, they were sometimes being persecuted because of the Arabs, because of the war that had been transpiring. So that was some experience taking them. I think I knew every kibbutz or moshav by heart in those days. And so it wasn't too long after all that we were, because I had received my master's degree to be a principal of a school when I was in Michigan, Detroit. They asked if I could direct a school. My husband was very appreciative of that too, because even though he and I were learning Hebrew together, he knew Arabic very well because he'd been 10 years before I came here. And he was ministering in many of the Arab places and villages and so on.
So
also helping them to understand Israel from the Bible. And many times we had opportunities among the Arabs, which I didn't know Arabic, but I'd back him up and have stories on my flannel graph telling the things from the Bible to the Arabs through my husband. But as I say, we began to realize now was our opportunity to begin to learn Hebrew too. And he was appreciative of the fact that we had this school where everything was in Hebrew. And by that time, with other teachers from the land, we had a very precious school in Haifa, at Bethel, a place called Bethel.
I wanted also to go back a bit maybe before, because we don't realize here we have abundance of fruits and vegetables now. But in your book, you really explain that it was not at all like that. So give us a bit. It was around 1950, I
Yes.
think. Tell us a bit
When
how
we
the
were at
life
St. Andrews,
was.
yes. I
Yes.
should have told them.
Yes.
Well, actually, everything was very much rationed, and you'd get a little coupons. You'd go and stand in line for an hour, maybe. I even got so I'd take a little folding stool along till my turn came, and they'd get a little piece of so-called meat, mostly bone. And I remember taking home a scrawny head of cabbage, even vegetables, and milk. You'd just like a cup a week. I can't remember the details too much. But I will say one thing. We had a little place underneath our folding bed in that one room at St. Andrews, and I'd keep some of those treasured things. And the care package was wonderful in those days. People would give money to, and we could get a coupon from friends who'd send us this, that we could get a care package, and inside was candy. Oh, you couldn't buy candy anywhere. And coffee and powdered milk and a lot of these special things.
Oh, it was a treat.
Which was a treat. And I remember at one time, in one shop, the only thing they had to sell was these carob, which was like the prodigal son. Anyway, but the fact that the shops had so little, and even when we had to stand in line or get it to our place. But as I said, sometimes if a guest would come from America, and we'd get those treasures that I kept under the, and they'd say, well, it isn't so bad here. But they didn't realize that
it was your treasures. Yeah.
A lot of interesting things.
But in your book, you say also during that time, even if it was scare, there was the miracle of being in the land and like being again
yes
in one place.
And no lovely things from Jericho. We were cut off from Jericho, so we didn't get the bananas. An apple, oh, somebody brought us an apple. That was treasured from America or somewhere. But like I say, the fact that we were there and knew what God was supplying what we needed made the difference.
No.
Back again to the school? Or
yes.
No? Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I can tell you more things about St. Andrews, maybe. I'll see later. But anyhow, at this school, my husband was doing a lot of visiting, like I say, preaching in different places, and I was carrying on mainly with this school. And they had the advantage of not only Hebrew and in the morning, but we had in the afternoon English, which was a help to these children. Some of their parents had passed away during the war, and some had won or whatever, and so it was free to them, sponsored by people in America.
So it was Jewish children, Arab children?
No,
Christian?
just Jewish children.
Okay,
They were.
okay.
And we had a curriculum, as I say, according to what the Jews had, and songs that we taught them, sang. Because we had Sunday off, the children, and Shabbat, of course, too, they could be free. The parents, if they had a parent, could come and visit them. But on Sundays, we took trips throughout the land in this station wagon. And one time we went from Metula, clear in the north, to Eilat, way in the south in one day.
Whoa.
Many times.
It's a long way. People need to, it's from the north all the way to
the south. But many experiences along the way, and meeting other believers and learning more about the land. But perhaps now I should jump to the time of the 6-Day War. We had it all during these times. Somebody in charge of the home, and I in charge of the school, the same children.
So 6-Day War is during 1967,
right.
Just for the people
and
to know.
And we saw the war maybe coming, and the believers...
Did you feel like the tension going higher
and higher? We surely did, yes. And because the believers began to come together and pray at a place, Dr. Churcher, who was from England, and people going there. Later, they came to our school because it was easier to get to. So, and some of our teachers were called to be in the army. So I had double duty, not only from us teachers and keeping the place clean for believers coming to pray about this war. But also, the story of the book of Esther was very real to me that time and other times. And so I knew how they fasted and didn't have anything to eat for 3 days. So I was in the middle of that, which made it even more. I relied on the strength from God. But I saw, and our children were writing to America in their English, telling what was going on. But when we saw that the war was still going on, I continued the fast, knowing our soldiers were up there in the Golan Heights still fighting. So this time I'd have water afterwards. But the thing that really touched me deeply was the believers were having their Saturday night meeting because their regular place, Bethesda, was being overhauled. And so when they were singing the song, "It is finished," "No Man of Sorrows," what a name, during communion, and "It is finished" was his cry. I knew that that war was finished.
Wow.
Nobody needed to tell me. I knew that it was over, and that when the meeting was finished, I could eat. My fast was over. That's personal. But the thing that really touched me much was, after all, we soldiers and everybody, we first of all were singing Yerushalayim Shel Zahav all over the place. Yerusha, what is it in English?
Jerusalem of gold.
Jerusalem of gold. Yes.
Of gold. Yeah.
Everybody was singing it all over because, as one of our teachers, by the way, by then we had a Bible college for the teachers taught by older men, Bible scholars. And one of those teachers came in to tell us all, Jerusalem is united in our hands. And then we really sang it, Jerusalem of gold.
And this is amazing because now we're doing the interview and it's the 6th of June.
Exactly.
And when I saw it, I said, there is no coincidence with the Lord. And like we're together speaking about it. And exactly, for me, and I like in your book, we can see it and you can feel it. And what a miracle that Jerusalem, the time of fulfillment in front of your eyes again when you are over there. And we're speaking before the program, like 1948, which was like the nation born in one day. But 1967, it was like a turning spiritually. The Temple Mount was in the hand of the people again.
And we began to take soldiers and others up to see these places that were now. What a time we had.
Explain that.
Yes, taking these soldiers to places and realizing the war was finished. And the sooner that we realized that, what the Lord has done, the less we have soldiers having to die in our place. Anyway, because I didn't tell the story of how it came to me when I was 18 years old, when Jesus said on the cross, "It's finished." It suddenly, I came to realize my sins were forgiven. It was finished back then. And now the Lord of hosts, the Lord of the armies, said to these armies, "It's finished." Anyhow, it's also real that whenever I picked up soldiers, taking them, and others, and seeing the places where bombs had fallen, and sometimes taking food from a sabra that said, "Come on, let's get some food and take it up to the soldiers." So we went to shop after shop, and they gave us food to take to the soldiers who had been in the war and were still up there. And we'd take food and Bibles and whatever they wanted. And oftentimes we'd nearly get where had been a bomb falling. And we'd just miss it. So very often it was miracle after miracle in our going to these places, which minds had little by little began taking away. Probably I should tell a few more things.
And how was it for the people to go at the Western Wall?
Well, I should take that too then. Shortly after that was Shavuot, and the feast of giving of the law, giving of the Holy Spirit. But our children were remembering too that they had to bring the fruits. And so we had this basket, and we had put fruits in it. And on the big grapefruit, we wrote Jerusalem. And on another one, we wrote Jericho. And another one, we wrote the different things that had fallen into Israel's hands. Those were our fruits. So we took that basket and went up to Jerusalem, our station wagon full of, it's in the book too, we went to the Garden Tomb where we could not go before it was in the tears. And the picture I have, all Jewish people who had come back to where they couldn't be before, and in the car, there I was. But the amazing thing, all of Israel began to come up now to the Western Wall. So there we were, too. We came from the New Gate right through hundreds, thousands, coming to see the Western Wall. And there we were with our little ones, with our, even the basket, I'm not sure. But so that was one of the first experiences afterwards, seeing the wall.
How did you feel?
And now we could go back to the Garden Tomb. Before, we used to, at St. Andrews, we'd look way over, was on Easter, we'd see way over where was the Garden Tomb. Yes, it was always such a thrill. I can't tell you how much it was, all those things. But I think I should tell you a few things after that. There was a film called His Land, I think done by Billy Graham. Amazing how prophecies being fulfilled and the Jews returning to the land. Somehow or other, because I had the projector in our school, I was asked to show that film everywhere. So I was taking it to different conferences and in some schools. Now I better back up and say, after the school was closed, partly because some did not like the fact that it was based from the Old and the New Testament. And the children, some of them wept when they had to leave. So only a few that were a certain age could stay. So then we did not have the school any longer. But like I say, I was back then when my first husband passed away about the same time on a trip, a worldwide trip. So I felt the leading of God to come back to Jerusalem. And that's when I began to, in Jerusalem again, and showing this film all over about that. And my friend of mine, Anita Kikafer, who did filming, she wanted to do a movie. So we did one called Shalom Salam, showing how things were peaceful. And like I say, I believe Israel and the Arabs would have made it fine together if it hadn't been Arab countries around about against Israel, because they saw how Israel was helping them to learn agricultural and doing. I went on trips where Israel was helping the Arabs, and how we did trying to get together in different places. And even schools, I won't go into details now, but because of school experience, a friend of mine and I worked on trying to get the fifth graders in both Jewish and Arab schools coming together. And it was a fantastic experience for them, beginning to learn each other's languages and sing songs, and they even put it in their school papers about that. But about this film, Shalom Salam, we still have that, which she made, showing these things of cooperation between. So we were doing a lot of things, and I was working with a group called Metatron. Not only one group, but many. This was one of them in the center of Jerusalem. I went to help this Jewish man from America, Yakir His last name, he changed it to Yakir Anyway, he was bringing the Arabs together to this club, and I was teaching Hebrew to the Arabs there, and Ada Ben Yehuda. Now let me stop in a minute after I get to talking about Ben Yehuda. Because this...
well, we will speak about Ben Yehuda, Eliezer Ben Yehuda, in the next program. We are going to do a series with Irene because her life is so exciting, and we'll speak to you about it. So I want, first of all, to give you a little break and see her book, which is called From Macomb, which was in Ohio, to Jerusalem. And this is a wonderful book. I read the book about the life of Eliezer Ben Yehuda. So it's like at the end of the 19th century to the first of the 20th century. And now this book for me is like the continuation. And Irene knows some children from Eliezer Ben Yehuda. Anyway, so we speak about that next time. But carry on.
One of the things that the Lord put into my hands too, because I knew people were coming all the time from America and other places to see Israel, what had become. And so one place after another fell into my lap by Jewish landlords or Arabic landlords, and I rented their place, and I said, not for me living in it, but for my friends. And so I had 4 guest apartments going in Jerusalem, and so whatever place they wanted to stay, and I let them pay what they could, keeping track, and taking Ben Yehuda's daughter, and other things, this film, to show them about what was happening. in Israel, as I had these guest apartments. And like I said, taking these Bibles to all these places. But, oh yes, somebody that came to the land was called Richard Wurmbrand. Mm-hmm. Now, one of my teachers, when they knew that the school was closed and I was going back to be with my husband in America, who became ill and passed away, she said, "You must feed Richard Wurmbrand." So some of you may know how he was treated by the communists, scars in his back all over from torture, because he was giving the Bible. But I went to hear him, and I told him about that teacher in my school, and that just brought a bond together. He had a film about his life and how he was tortured, so I had that film, and now I was showing it. I had the same projector that I had while we had a school, so I was showing him all over, and even on trips back to America where my sisters lived and still live in her 90s.
This is amazing.
And there I was showing them things about Israel and about this film that Anita and I had done, Shalom Salam, and about Richard Wurmbrand and so on. But
we will carry on for next week, because this is your
that's when I come to Ben Yehuda too.
Wonderful. This is 65 years, in the land, so we can't just do it in 28 minutes. Friends, it's been wonderful to be with you. Irene, thank you again for coming. Thank you for coming back to be able to explain to the people how is life here in Israel. Shalom, shalom.
You've been watching In the Last Days, a TV program with Martin and Natalie Blackham, the program that looks at Israel and the end times with teaching from a Hebraic perspective. If you would like to financially support the program or find out about conferences, meetings or ministry products, then please contact us with the details on your screen. Visit our easy-to-use website at www.inthelastdays.com and register for our free e-newsletter. Get the latest news from Israel, product information, online video teaching, or watch today's TV program at a time that's convenient to you. Thank you again, friends and partners, for making this program possible.
See you same time, same station for the next program from In the Last Days.